Hello and welcome. This is Business Incorporated and thank you for joining us. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. I'm coming up on the show today. African Development Bank launches $500 million credit insurance deal. Airtel Africa raises $1.25 billion from 6 global investors. And a U.S. federal appeals court reinstates a lawsuit by a group of former child slaves accusing the U.S. unit of Nestle of perpetuating child slavery in Ivory Coast. Well, we head straight to the markets, and here in Africa, it's looking like a red day this Wednesday at intraday. The Nigerian All-Share Index was down 0.27%, while the GNC Index had lost almost 1%, also at intraday. Egypt was 1.24% lower at about midday Nigerian time, and the Kenyan Bourse closed 0.39% down on Tuesday. It's not so different in the Middle East, where most of the major indices are also trading lower at intraday. The Abu Dhabi Index was down 0.89%, while the Dubai Index was 0.55% negative, also at intraday. Now, the Qatar Index was the heaviest loser with over 1%. The Saudi Tadawul Index was the only one in the green. In Europe, stocks were higher in the early trade as investors monitored a fresh batch of economic data and a flurry of corporate earnings results. Well, let's begin today's conversation with my colleague at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, Paul Breeds. Hello, Paul. Good to have you.
Hey, good afternoon.
So let's begin this conversation with Saudi Arabia's investment conference, which is in full swing in Riyadh. Despite companies like JP Morgan, Uber, Deutsche Bank, and Siemens pulling out of the meeting over the killing of Jamal Khashoggi, how is it affecting the conference?
Well, the conference is dubbed or nicknamed the Davos in the desert. And that is because, like that famous event in the Swiss Alps in Davos, it has been able, last year when it happened for the first time, to attract a lot of high-profile international faces there, people interested in making deals with Saudi Arabia and getting their business. And this year, a lot of these faces are missing. So that is an interesting change to this conference. Of course, Saudi Arabia wants to show that it is more or less business as usual. It's made efforts to make it publicly visible that a lot of business talks are happening still. In the first day, deals worth $50 billion. And that's because, of course, not everyone has pulled out of this conference. The Russian Direct Investment Fund is there. A lot of other Arabic allies from the region are also there, of course. But there is, of course, also pressure and difficulties in the ties with a lot of Western companies. We'll have to see how that plays out in the future, whether it has a lasting effect. Saudi Arabia is certainly trying to minimize that lasting effect. The central bank head said today that for banks that have decided to boycott the meeting, there will not be any punitive measures, no penalties, and that they are looking forward to making business in the future. That, of course, being one of the worries for many of the CEOs also that pulled out, namely Siemens, for example. They were worried about their reputation as a reliable business partner and, you know, what consequences the Saudis would possibly bring up or follow after companies pulled out.
Now let's look at some corporates there. Germany's largest lender, Deutsche Bank, logs a net fall in profits of 65% in the third quarter. Now, the former international heavyweight has lost a lot of its shine, but CEO Christian Soin says the bank is on track to show its first full-year profit since 2014. How is that possible?
Deutsche Bank, so just as a reminder, is going through a very, very costly restructuring of its entire operation, really. A lot of people are being let go. The bank is trying to cut down from over 90,000, I think 95,000 people to under 90,000 by the end of the year. And it looks like that restructuring is nearing, at least nearing the end. And just because the profits are down doesn't mean that the company, the bank isn't making any profits. It is making profits. However, Zeving needs to make sure that he keeps control over that because in the past year it also looked very, very good in the third quarter. But then costs exploded with bonuses and the American tax reform where the bank wasn't able to write off as much as they had hoped for, so no profit back then. The bank really does need that profit this year, though, to show that it is still possible to rescue this bank, because the once shining star, as you said, has lost a lot of its shine. It's really an embarrassment for Germany as a whole, because who is going to take the country seriously as a marketplace if there isn't, a big international banking player involved? And a lot of other banks have come out of the 2008 financial crisis a lot better. U.S. banks did get an injection from the government that European banks did not get. But they're also much more flexible. They've changed their business models, whereas Deutsche is struggling with investment banking and just struggling to restructure altogether.
And a single man has boosted Tesla's share price over 10% with a surprise statement. And it's not Elon Musk. Who is this person helping the electric car maker to shine on Wall Street?
Yeah, so for once, it is not one of Musk's notorious tweets that is influencing the share price here. Musk is famous, though, for his quarrel with short sellers on Tesla. Lots of people are betting on Tesla crashing and not being able to make it. And it has been a struggle, indeed, for the company. But it looks like Musk has been able to turn one person around, and that's a very prominent Wall Street investor that has switched sides and came out saying that really this Tesla was a revolution I underestimated. This Wall Street investor is Andrew Edward Left from Citron Research, one of the Tesla critics. And he says now everyone is currently fixed on Musk and his mishaps. And meanwhile, Tesla is quietly becoming a successful company. In fact, Tesla has outsold BMW in the US in August. It's delivering a lot of vehicles, which it's had problems with before. And Musk is promising profitability. He has been promising profitability for quite a while now. So we'll really see about that today after the closing bell on Wall Street, when we will see earnings results from Tesla being brought open to the public. Yeah.
Sure, watch out for that. Thank you very much for your time, Paul.